Our story begins in a distant sanctuary, where two figures discuss a hero from another world who annihilated the Demon King in record time. The assistant grumbles about how these other-worlders always receive broken cheat skills, making their conquests far too easy. It turns out this evil god actually murders heroes in their original worlds just to fuel his twisted reincarnation cycle. Haruto Kiju, the newly summoned hero, is understandably furious about this arrangement. He demands to know why it was absolutely necessary to kill him just to send him to a new world. Couldn't the god have just teleported him without all the unnecessary suffering and death? The deity explains that the process is powered by negative energy, specifically a potent blend of fear and absolute despair. He then casually mentions a nasty little curse he's placed on Haruto's new life. This curse ensures that no matter how many monsters he slaughters, he is permanently stuck at level 1 forever. With no time left for debate, the god initiates the hero's new life immediately. But in a classic blunder, the evil god accidentally assigns him a pathetic third-rate job. His assistant panics upon realizing they forgot to select a spawn point, meaning Haruto's soul is about to drift into the void. Realizing he's in deep trouble, the evil god rushes to perform the reincarnation ritual before he gets caught. With manic energy, the assistant grabs a dart and a target board to finish the ritual RNG style. She notes that per her boss's orders, this hero is destined for a miserable life of slavery. The dart is thrown, landing dead center on the target with perfect precision. However, she's left totally horrified, revealing that hitting the bullseye is actually the worst possible outcome. Cut to Haruto's new life, where he wakes up in a cramped, dark space that feels strangely warm. When he finally manages to open his eyes, he is absolutely stunned by the sight directly in front of him. A mysterious woman apologizes, hoping she hasn't made things too awkward or uncomfortable for him. Kiju realizes that 5 years have already vanished since his rebirth, and this woman is actually his personal maid. Driven by curiosity, he pulls up his status window, only to be met with a grim discovery. Every single one of his attributes is permanently frozen, making it impossible for him to ever level up. Exhausted by the late hour, he heads to bed, but Tina prepares to tuck in beside him, just as she did before he regained his memories. Finding the situation incredibly awkward, he asks if he can finally start sleeping in his own bed. Tina is heartbroken and confused, asking if she's done something wrong to lose his affection. Unable to reveal he's actually a grown man in a child's body, he simply insists on having his own space. She reluctantly agrees, but reminds him that if he ever feels lonely, he's always welcome in her room. The next day, he grows curious about her own abilities and decides to peek at her status window. To his absolute shock, he discovers she's actually level 250, an insane rank for someone who is supposedly just a maid. With her power revealed, she begins a grueling training regimen, unaware that his stats are physically incapable of rising. Lacking a way to explain his condition, he plays along and pushes himself to avoid the embarrassment of looking weak. He starts by casting a basic attack spell, one that should only consume a negligible amount of mana. Getting swept up in the moment, he begins unleashing the same spell in a rapid-fire barrage. After a full day of non-stop casting, he fully expects his mana reserves to be completely bottomed out. However, upon checking his status, he's stunned to see that his mana points haven't dropped by a single digit. In that moment, he realizes the curse locking his potential has a broken side effect. His mana supply is literally infinite. Empowered by this discovery, he's more determined than ever to grow strong enough to face the evil god once again. Fast forward a few months, and Kiju is out in the wilderness with Tina to hunt his very first monster. She immediately conjures a massive ice wall to trap the beast and cut off any hope of escape. With no escape left, the cornered beast lunges directly at him. After months of honing his precision, he channels a concentrated flame spell and fires. The blast lands a direct hit, instantly taking down the strange horned rabbit. This marks his first kill, leaving him with a hollow, unsettling sensation in his chest. Once home, he butchers the bizarre creature and begins prepping it for a midday meal. While eating, he reflects on his slight hesitation, realizing his combat instincts have dulled over time. Witnessing his progress, Tina is convinced he's destined to become the world's strongest. She observes his training in shock as he effortlessly shatters every crystal target she sets up. Even though his status panel remains unchanged, his destructive power is terrifyingly real. She begins to suspect that he is the reincarnation of the legendary hero from centuries ago. Still, she keeps her theories to herself, choosing to observe his growth a little while longer. 5 years fly by, and Haruto is now attending the entrance ceremony at the Royal Magic Academy. A young girl is called to the stage, but in her haste, she accidentally bumps into another student. She quickly apologizes, explaining that she simply didn't see him standing in her path. The rat-faced noble sneers, asking if she understands the weight of the 2 white lines on his collar. Another boy watches the tension rise, realizing the girl has stumbled into a dangerous situation. He prepares to cast a spell to intervene, but a hand suddenly stops him in his tracks. Haruto grabs his arm, preventing him from making a scene and a massive mistake. Stepping in front of the girl, Haruto calmly states that the apology was sufficient and to let it go. Realizing Haruto is the son of a powerful count, the bully pales and orders his cronies to back off. Realizing they've picked a fight with the wrong person, the bullies quickly tuck tail and retreat. Kiju comforts the girl, telling her to pay them no mind and that not all nobles are so arrogant. The boy who had been ready to fight thanks Kiju for stepping in before things escalated. Realizing they're all academy freshmen, Kiju offers a hand of friendship to his new peers. With a firm handshake, the boy introduces himself as Rook. The girl follows suit, introducing herself as Luna and politely asking for their support. Eager to bond, Kiju invites his new companions back to his place for a visit. Coming from humble backgrounds, the two are floored by the sheer scale of Kiju's massive estate. Tina warmly welcomes them, leaving the pair stunned that Kiju has his own personal maid. The next morning marks the official start of their first lecture at the Magic Academy. Arriving together, the trio finds they're the last ones in as the class begins their introductions. Leafa and Melody go first, sharing their excitement to work alongside their new classmates. Following them, the siblings Ryushin and Ryuka stand up to present themselves to the room. Soon after, a girl named Yuko introduces herself with a simple request for everyone to treat her well. Next, a pair of twin sisters named Mai and Mei take their turn to address the class. Just as Kiju prepares to speak, heavy footsteps echo through the hall before the door swings open. To Kiju's absolute shock, Tina walks in, revealing herself as their new homeroom teacher. She formally introduces herself, announcing that she'll be the one guiding their education. Whispers break out as students recognize her name, Tina Harabel, as the legend who once led heroes against the Demon King. She calmly confirms the rumors, revealing that she is indeed the legendary figure from the history books. Still skeptical, the students demand she provide some actual proof of her identity. Tina casually opens her status window to reveal she's level 250. Instantly terrifying the class into submission. She admits she only took the job out of boredom, but promises to whip them into shape for the interclass battle. To kick off the lesson, Tina begins assessing each student's individual magical affinity. Leafa is the first to step up, immediately channeling her internal mana. She materializes a shimmering bow and takes a deep breath to lock onto her mark. Her wind arrow streaks through the air, striking the target dead center with lethal precision. Next up for the magical evaluation are the twin sisters. Holding hands, they conjure a combined spell so potent the target crystal shatters into dust. Ryushin follows suit, activating his formidable dragon metamorphosis magic. He unleashes a devastating dragon claw attack, causing the new target to crumble under the impact. Another student then showcases her utility by flawlessly regenerating the broken targets to their original state. Kizyu watches in awe, staggered by the overwhelming power his classmates possess. It's a bitter reminder that he's still trapped at level 1 due to the evil god's curse. He realizes he still hasn't told Tina about his predicament, just as Melody prepares for her turn. As Melody steps forward, Luna offers to provide some tactical magical support. Luna casts her high-tier buffs, massively boosting Melody's magical output and defense. Radiating pure energy, Melody is hyped by the unprecedented surge of power flowing through her. She channels that momentum into a single point, lunging forward to deliver a supersonic punch. With the massive buffs fueling her, she completely obliterates the magical target in one shot. The entire class was buzzing, convinced that Melody and Luna were the ultimate power duo. Tina then chimed in, noting that 8 students had already showcased their skills and asked which of the final 2 would step up next. Haruto sensed a strange tension as his classmates continued to flex their abilities, but he was itching to get started. Just as he prepared to volunteer, Rook cut him off and claimed center stage, insisting that since Haruto trained under Tina, he should be the grand finale. Little did they know, Haruto was still technically level 1, but he remained calm and let Rook take the lead anyway. Stepping forward, Rook summoned his legendary weapons, Hope and the Thunder Destroyer Hammer. He chanted for the weapons to receive his mana as a mark of their pact and submit to his absolute will. "Unleash your true power now!" he commanded with overwhelming confidence. Activating his ultimate thunder ability, Rook struck the target with such ferocity that the very ground beneath it shattered. Stunned by the display, Leafa asked Tina if the magic Rook just unleashed was actually a mythical tier spell. Tina confirmed it, explaining that Rookvel Iflus is the grandson of the Academy's president and one of the rare few capable of wielding mythical magic. Meanwhile, Haruto was feeling the pressure, wondering how on earth he was supposed to follow an act as flashy as that. Tina whispered a warning to him, insisting he use no more than 30% of his power or risk leveling the entire training hall. While the others were told to give it their all, Haruto was the only one asked to hold back, leaving his classmates curious about his true potential. Haruto assumed Tina would provide a fragile target to hide his perceived weakness, thinking she was just trying to spare his feelings. He realized that if he obliterated the target, the class would believe he was effortlessly outclassing them with a mere fraction of his strength. To play the part, he warned everyone that his control was shaky before Tina stepped in to boost the room's magical defenses for safety. Using a mere 10 mana, he rapidly cycled his magical flow to build up a staggering 100,000 MP, condensing it into pure flame. When Tina feigned shock, asking if that was truly only 30%, Haruto marveled at her acting skills while preparing a massive explosion. Deciding to go big, he amplified his output 1,000 times over, lacing the tip of his spear with both darkness and lightning. With no other choice, he prepared to unleash his full power. As he launched his fire spirit at the target, Tina screamed in a desperate attempt to stop him. Meanwhile, just a few minutes prior, Yuko had found herself lost in a room filled with mysterious artifacts. She had skipped class to search for something important, but a massive explosion suddenly interrupted her quest. Spinning around, she saw the other students frozen in shock, staring at the blast site. As the smoke finally began to clear, a figure emerged. It was Tina, looking absolutely battered from the impact of the explosion. Haruto immediately rushed to apologize, but she erupted in fury, reminding him she'd strictly ordered him to use only 30% of his power. He was lucky he'd managed to suppress the spell. Otherwise, the entire central district would have been leveled. The boy explained that his magic never caused issues at home. But Tina revealed she had spent years reinforcing her mansion with barriers. Even then, she could barely withstand the sheer pressure of his mana. His classmates watched in a mix of awe and terror, realizing his true strength, especially since even a level 250 instructor could barely contain him. Tina dismissed the class so she could clean up the destruction, promising to catch up with them later. While the other students filed out, Tina signaled for Haruto to stay behind once more. The boy apologized again for overdoing it, but she reminded him that holding back wasn't just a suggestion. If he hadn't restrained himself at the last second, she would have been nothing but a memory. The stone pendant Tina always wears is actually a magical artifact. She explains that it triggers a powerful defense spell if her life is ever in danger, though it only works once. It was a precious gift from someone dear to her. Feeling guilty, Haruto apologizes again for going too far, promising to do whatever she asks to make it up to her. Hearing this, she looks up and asks if he really means anything. When he confirms, Tina reveals her simple wish. She wants things back the way they were, starting with sleeping by his side again. A bit surprised, the boy asks if she's truly comfortable with that arrangement. She nods, adding that she'd also love a hug. For the protagonist, that's an easy request to grant. Overjoyed, she thanks him and immediately lunges forward. She throws her arms around him, pulling him into a tight embrace. Whispering against his chest, she admits just how terrifying the recent events truly were. Haruto offers another sincere apology, gently ruffling her hair to soothe her fears. Wrapped in his arms, she finds his warmth more comforting than any blanket. Later that night in his room, Tina declares that this shouldn't be a one-time thing. She wants to sleep by his side forever. This raises a major question. Why would a legendary figure like her choose to serve as a humble maid? She warns him that the explanation is a long one, asking if he's prepared to stay up late to hear it. Haruto is all ears, eager to finally learn the truth about her mysterious past. Given her elite skills, she should be working for the crown. Even with his father's immense wealth, hiring someone of her caliber should have been impossible. Tina reveals that long ago, she traveled alongside the legendary heroes summoned from another world to defeat the Demon King. Among those heroes, there was one man who captured her heart. Though he wasn't the leader of the group. He was a man of action who would sprint toward any village under attack without a second thought. It was his unwavering courage alone that inspired the rest of the party to stand their ground against the monster hordes. Even though he never actually defeated the Demon King, in her eyes he was a true hero. Through the time they spent together, she found herself falling deeply in love, despite knowing the risks. According to the laws of this world, heroes are forcibly returned to their own realm the moment the Demon King falls, making their bonds feel fleeting. Curious, Haruto asked if she had been that hero's lover. Tina admitted their relationship never reached that stage, leaving Haruto feeling a mix of sympathy and, selfishly, a bit of relief. She explained that those blissful days came to an abrupt end the moment the Demon King was finally vanquished. When Haruto asked if heroes could choose to stay, she revealed that her hero had tried everything to remain by her side. Sadly, the world's laws were absolute. Haruto then realized she was the descendant of that hero, whose departure was simply an unavoidable fate. It was then that the boy realized the artifact he had destroyed earlier was actually a protective ward left behind by that very hero. Tina explained that she had sensed a magical signature remarkably similar to the hero's suddenly appearing in the world. This led her to believe that Haruto was the literal reincarnation of the man she once loved. She had been convinced it was his power, and Haruto could only offer a sincere apology for the misunderstanding. She sought clarification, asking if he was indeed a reincarnated soul, even if he wasn't the specific hero she knew. While she sometimes wondered why fate hadn't brought the original hero back, her heart began to shift. Having watched Haruto train tirelessly every single day, the memory of the hero's face slowly began to merge with his own. Even before she realized it, she had stopped waiting for a ghost and started seeing the boy in front of her. Now her heart longed only for Haruto, prompting a tender moment between them. Haruto gently asked Tina if she felt happy being by his side. Pulling him into a tight embrace, she whispered that she felt truly at peace. Taking her hands, he vowed to become strong enough to protect her, asking if they could face the future together. Tina offered a warm smile, promising that she would always stay by his side. In this new world, the boy's resolve was set. He would become the most powerful being in existence. He aimed to surpass even the legendary hero who slew the Demon King, gaining the strength to protect both his beloved and the world. The following morning, Tina woke him up by throwing open the windows and announcing that breakfast was served. She leaned in close, asking for permission, which left Haruto completely bewildered. Slowly and tenderly, she leaned in and pressed her lips against his in a soft kiss. While the curse prevented him from leveling up, there were still countless ways for him to grow. Tina admitted she was new to these feelings, asking him to look after her from now on. Fueled by a new fire, the boy was determined to gain strength and earn the title of a legendary sage. This strongest level 1 sage was destined to become Tina's personal hero. The pair arrived at the academy exceptionally early, the boy's mind still racing from the previous day's chaos. He wondered if the damaged grounds were being repaired, only to be told that workers had finished the job overnight. It turns out the Count of the Silver House had dispatched a team of elite dwarven craftsmen to handle the repairs. Tina rushed off to an important meeting, leaving the boy to reflect on how quickly his new life was moving. Thanks to Tina's brilliant guidance, he had absorbed a wealth of knowledge and could now manifest magic from every element. He just hoped the meddling nobles wouldn't interfere. Even if they discovered his level 1 status, he knew he'd manage. Whether he relied on his family's influence or his own grit, he was ready. After all, he now had 2 goals to achieve. Suddenly, Yuko appeared behind him, complimenting the epic display of magic he had unleashed the day before. She was stunned by his sheer power, revealing she had been relaxing in the area long before he even arrived. Surprised, the boy asked if she had been at the training grounds yesterday, noting he hadn't seen her use any magic himself. She snapped back, reminding him that he had already witnessed her magic firsthand. She asked if he noticed that no one even realized she was missing from class, explaining her ability to mask her presence. This advanced magic makes her nearly impossible to detect and even reduces physical damage, a feat very few can pull off. Curious, the boy asked why he could feel such a strange, intense magical aura radiating from her tails. She froze, shocked that he could actually see them. He confirmed they had been perfectly visible to him since yesterday, which immediately changed the mood. Shifting into a combat stance, she declared that he was never supposed to lay eyes on her tails. Because he had seen her true form, she claimed she had no choice but to eliminate him. It was then the boy realized that this girl was actually quite dangerous. However, he wasn't just some ordinary guy. With her current power level, she didn't stand a chance, so he offered to keep her secret. He promised not to say a word, but she decided she couldn't take any chances. Suddenly, she lunged forward and ensnared him within the coils of her tails. She gently kissed his hand and whispered that she was forming a sacred bond with him. With a flash of light, she etched a magical seal onto him to finalize their contract. The boy realized that if Yuko continued to flex this kind of high-level magic, he might actually be in trouble. As the glow faded, he asked what she had done, feeling as though his very movements were being restricted. Yuko giggled, explaining he had it backward. This master-servant contract actually meant she was now bound to serve him. As a 9-tailed fox, she is a legendary demon that stores power in her tails, capable of causing disasters. She confessed her plan was to harvest mana at the academy and brainwash everyone to build her own base of operations. Haruto promptly smacked her on the head, dismissing her villainous monologue, but she fumed, insisting that the academy was only the beginning. She declared that one day the entire world would tremble under her power, asking Haruto if he was ready for their journey toward total domination. Once again, he delivered a sharp slap to snap her out of those delusional fantasies. Yuko couldn't fathom why he'd refuse world domination, promising that with their combined might, the world would eventually bow to him. Haruto reflected on her offer. Ever since the evil god summoned him, he craved power, and without his curse, he might have actually succumbed to the temptation. However, he flatly tells her he has no interest in being a demon king. His true ambition is to become a hero. Stunned, Yuko asks him to repeat himself, unable to believe her ears. She questions if he truly intends to walk the path of a righteous hero. She wonders why he hasn't tried to seize the massive magical reserves hidden within her tales, and if that's the real reason he's kept her secret hidden from their teacher. But mid-sentence, a sharp, stabbing pain surges through her head. Her vision blurs with dizziness until she eventually collapses to the ground. Visions of her past begin to surface. Memories of a lonely fox cub wandering among heartless humans. Men who saw her 9 tails not as a living being, but as a massive payday, chasing her down like a wild animal. Paralyzed by fear, those traumatic experiences left a deep scar on her soul. It's why she harbors such a burning hatred for humans, and especially for heroes. To her, heroes are just monsters who flex their power to slaughter 9-tailed foxes the moment they're spotted. She screams that they are the same ones who've been enslaving her kind since they were children. Haruto gently pats her head, whispering that he finally understands her pain. He reassures her that he has absolutely no intention of exploiting her or her abilities. Confused, Yuko asks what this means for the master-servant contract they just formed. Haruto replies that the contract is pointless, as he'd never hurt her anyway, and suggests they just scrap it. Feeling a bit bashful, she admits that she simply can't. To secure the protection of a powerhouse like him, she had to forge a bond using the ancient magic of her tales. Since this link is unbreakable, Haruto offers to sever it himself, but Yuko warns that doing so would have disastrous consequences for her. He questions the fairness of such a pact as the intricate details of the contract swirl through his mind. Yuko is bound to follow his every command as long as her life isn't in peril, but it seems Haruto's own instinct to protect her is only growing stronger. Moments later, Rook enters the room and stumbles upon a rather bizarre sight. Haruto is petting Yuko while she relaxes in his lap, but he tells her she needs to head back before the others arrive. Yuko obeys, stating that if her master commands it, she will return to her place immediately. Just like that, Haruto gains a loyal demon companion capable of triggering natural disasters. However, as he approaches Tina, she senses something is wrong. Before he can even explain the presence looming behind him, she demands that Yuko exit the protagonist's body. The fox girl isn't surprised, noting that a master like Tina would sense her presence even without a formal contract. Tina brushes off the flattery, demanding to know why she's tagging along and what this contract is all about. Without hesitation, Haruto explains exactly what had transpired between them. This leaves his servant visibly annoyed, realizing that Yuko is essentially a demon possessing the boy. Tina begins to manifest her abilities, causing the fox girl to tense up in response. Yuko swears her absolute loyalty to Haruto, who promises to keep her in line while asking Tina not to hurt her. However, the servant insists his protective instincts are just a side effect of the contract, leading Yuko to plead for her master's help. Our protagonist tells her to relax, assuring her that he'll handle the situation. He explains to Tina that since he doesn't bear the physical seal like Yuko, he isn't actually being influenced by the contract. When the protagonist checked his status, he found that he was still cursed and was sure that the contract wasn't working like Yuko thought. Then, the MC continued saying that the fox girl was so cute, it made him feel good to protect her. Next, Haruto gave some instructions to Yuko, and even though they were a bit embarrassing, the girl promptly obeyed. With that, he told Tina that Yuko totally follows his orders. However, the woman said that she could obey his orders, but nothing guarantees she wouldn't attack or brainwash other people. The boy then told Yuko that, except when allowed, all harmful attacks on humans are a no-go. With that, there would be no issues, as he'd keep her close whenever he had nothing to do to keep an eye on her. But when Tina wasn't at school, it would be risky to leave a demon by the boy's side. And besides that, Yuko is a girl. So if she's always with him, soon his innocence would be at stake. The fox girl knew this was to be expected, and still the heroine Tina is also her master's servant. So since her master is the son of her boss, she wouldn't oppose him. So the first thing she should do is take advantage of the night and with her charms work her magic on him. She really is a cheeky one. When night came and Tina entered the MC's room to sleep, upon seeing Yuko in his bed, she asked what she was doing there. There. Yuko replied that it was a safe spot and asked why Tina was there and if she planned to sleep with Haruto. And the heroine said yes, Fuming, the fox girl said that she was his teacher at school and that this was super naughty. And Tina asked if that was the real reason she couldn't sleep with the boy.
Haruto told them to chill and called both of them to bed to catch some Z's.
Tina flopped down and Yuko dove into the boy's arms, words rubbing against him like a cat. Haruto even invited Yuko to stay the night with them. The night passed in a flash, and by sunrise, Tina was already busy in the kitchen preparing breakfast. Finding Haruto and Yuko curled up together in her fox form, Tina found she couldn't even bring herself to be annoyed. Moments later, Yuko skipped into the kitchen, curious about the delicious aromas. Tina offered her a sample of the meal, and the second the flavors hit Yuko's tongue, she was convinced it was the most incredible thing she'd ever tasted. Tina mentioned it was Haruto's personal favorite dish, explaining that it was actually quite simple once you mastered the technique. She even offered to give Yuko some lessons, which the fox girl enthusiastically accepted. Tina then suggested she help out with chores if she planned on sticking around more often. As Tina began explaining how to use the various kitchen utensils, an impatient Yuko insisted she didn't have time for a lengthy lecture. The fox girl quickly finished preparing her own attempt at the dish. The flavors were an absolute explosion, and a proud Tina promised to teach her how to make dashi next. Thrilled that she could now make tamagoyaki anytime, Yuko rushed off to show her master and earn some praise. She asked Tina if her master was still asleep, but Tina replied that he'd likely finished his morning run and was already practicing magic out back. This had been his unwavering routine since the age of 5, training relentlessly every single day. Because of Haruto's intense power, Tina had to reinforce the property's defensive barriers every single night. His relentless work ethic is exactly why she's grown so fond of him. Yuko even admits that her feelings for him have likely deepened. As they chat, the boy arrives and she rushes to present the meal she worked so hard to prepare. He asks if Tina has been mentoring her, and she explains she couldn't just let the girl sit around idle. After taking a bite, he praises the dish as incredible, leaving the girl absolutely ecstatic, promising to share every future creation with him. And just like that, their household officially welcomes a brand new member. A few days later, their teacher announces that the class battles are set for 3 days from now, against the 7th graders. The class is visibly shaken, worried about whether they can actually hold their own against such experienced seniors. Tina reassures them, noting that since it's a one-on-one tournament, their skills should be more than a match. She insists that everyone in the group is far more powerful than they appear. The 5 representatives chosen for the upcoming battle are Lifa, Ryushin, Melody, Rook, and Haruto. With that, the rosters are officially locked in. One opponent scoffs at their lavish room, questioning if the Count's son is merely riding on his father's connections. Rook recognizes them as the bullies who harassed Luna on orientation day, while Haruto suspects they're back for revenge. This leaves the group wondering just how formidable these 7th graders truly are. However, Haruto quickly notices that their mana signatures are surprisingly pathetic. He asks his classmate how such weaklings even reached the 7th grade, and his friend agrees, baffled by their arrogance. Haruto then realizes that unless magic is actively being used, only a sage can truly sense someone's internal power. Meanwhile, the girls grow concerned, asking Luna why she's suddenly looking so pale. Nervous and trembling, she finally spilled the truth about what had happened. The girls finally understood the drama from the entrance ceremony, and Lifa suggested that Luna visit the infirmary. However, Luna insisted on staying, determined to stand her ground and face her detractors head-on. Spotting the elf, the boys mocked her, arrogantly claiming their skills would soon have her in tears. By now, the entire first-year class was growing tired of their obnoxious and condescending behavior. Suddenly, an announcement called for the vanguards of both classes to make their way to the arena. To motivate her teammate, Lifa asked Luna if she enjoyed the restaurant they visited the other day. She promised that once they secured the win, they'd celebrate there again. So Luna needed to watch closely, because this match was going to be legendary, which is why the gymnasium was overflowing with eager spectators. Nullity questioned their opponent's strength, but Rushian was confident they'd crush the 7th graders, despite the girls' lingering worries. After surviving the teacher's gargoyles, she realized these opponents were likely small fry in comparison. Still, Rook warned them not to get complacent, as the enemy might rely on underhanded tactics or hidden magic. Lifa agreed, urging the team to stay alert while declaring she'd be the one to strike the first blow. Determined to prove his worth, Haruto vowed to give the upcoming battle everything he had. He even began chanting Lifa's name, cheering her on fervently before the duel even commenced. As they squared off, her opponent beckoned her forward, dismissively claiming the fight was already over. Offended by his arrogance, Liafa wondered if he truly believed he could survive her opening gambit so easily. Violent gusts of wind began to swirl around Liafa as she channeled a staggering amount of mana. Amidst the tension, Haruto noticed Yuko arriving and signaled that he had saved a seat right next to him. Looking back, he saw Mai leaning on the railing. She noted that letting Liafa charge her magic like that was a fatal mistake. She questioned if their rivals lacked even a shred of common sense. Caught in the gust of Liafa's wind magic, the girl completely lost her footing and stumbled. As she tumbled, the boy lunged forward and caught her, sparing her from a nasty faceplant. However, as he held her, he couldn't help but notice how strangely light she felt. Their eyes met for a fleeting moment, and a spark began to ignite, only to be abruptly extinguished by May. May aggressively yanked her sister away from his grasp. He tried to explain he was only helping, but May noted her sister was acting incredibly strange. May offered a brief word of thanks for the rescue, but warned him not to get too comfortable. Back in the arena, Liafa was channeling her mana with absolute precision. Her opponent began to panic, terrified by the overwhelming surge of power she was manifesting. Desperate to stop her, he scrambled to prepare a counterspell of his own, but Liafa didn't give him an opening, unleashing a devastating explosive arrow. He barely managed to conjure a barrier to shield himself from the impact. However, his defense was insufficient, and the sheer force began to overwhelm him. He was sent flying out of the ring like a sack of garbage, crashing right into his classmates. Liafa had completely humiliated him with a single decisive strike. Watching the brutal smackdown, the girl grew anxious about the potential fallout. Tina laughed, recalling how she struggled to maintain the barrier even during the gargoyle onslaught. Tina never expected her colleague's magical barrier to crumble so easily under her student's raw power. The opponent protested, claiming the blast that sent him flying out of the arena was an illegal move. However, the referee intervened, clarifying that the rules only forbid attacks from the outside. Blasting someone out of the ring is perfectly legal. Since the barrier's destruction went unnoticed, and the 7th graders were completely incapacitated, the victory was officially handed to the first years. Amidst the confusion, someone shouted that the 4 students caught in the blast were actually just spectators, not even part of the match. Desperate to salvage the situation, the opposing instructor called upon a ringer named Edgar, who wasn't even supposed to be competing. Edgar arrived on the scene with a bored expression, asking why they bothered calling him in the first place. They quickly explained that the golden-haired girl had single-handedly wiped out their entire front line in an instant. The faculty proposed a player swap to keep the match going, and the first-year team, confident in their abilities, coolly accepted the challenge. When asked if he was ready for a fight, Edgar yawned and replied that while he was a bit sleepy, he was more than ready to go. Back in the stands, Tina showered Liafa with praise for her overwhelming magic, telling her to relax while Rushian handled the rest of the work. Ryuka jokingly told her brother that even if she ended up biting the dust, she'd still win because she'd just bring him back to life to finish the job. Edgar appeared to be a formidable match for Rushian, a beast in hand-to-hand combat whose sudden entrance completely derailed Tina's original strategy. As it was time for the next round, Rushian stepped up with total confidence, vowing to end the fight in a flash just like Liafa did. The student council president asked if he truly understood Edgar's power, assuring Rushian he would intervene if things took a turn for the worse. Edgar boasted that he almost never loses to anyone, well, except for that one mysterious guy. As the battle announcement blared through the stadium, Rushian was left wondering what that cryptic comment even meant. But there was no time for questions. He had a massive audience and a class to impress. He couldn't afford to waste another second on nonsense or distractions. He charged at his opponent with full force, ready to end the confrontation once and for all. Reacting instantly, Edgar threw up a powerful barrier to brace himself against the incoming assault. Edgar acknowledged that Rushian possessed incredible speed and raw power. However, after unleashing that massive technique, his guard was left completely wide open. Edgar capitalized instantly, striking Rushian with a heavy blow from behind. The impact sent him crashing into the dirt. Knowing Draconians are incredibly durable, Edgar didn't hold back, and he was officially declared the winner. Ryuko was summoned to the medical room to provide recovery magic, stomping off while muttering about how reckless the boy was. Haruto jumped to his defense, insisting Rushian wasn't being careless, but she simply retorted that she'd be the one comforting him when he finally woke up. Tina chimed in, noting that Edgar is considered an elite student even by this school's standards and holds a seat on the student council. Our protagonist asked Melody if she could handle Edgar. She admitted she could track his movements, but his unknown spells remained a massive red flag. While Luna was impressed that nobody could predict his next move, Tina suddenly called out to her. She announced it was finally her turn to step up, leaving the other girls visibly confused. Melody prepared for the third battle, banking on the idea that if Luna buffed her, Edgar wouldn't have a moment to counterattack. Their classmates were skeptical, wondering if support magic could even bypass the barrier or if it was legal in a one-on-one duel. Tina clarified that since this is class-based combat, it would be unfair to exclude supporters, meaning as long as they're in the same class, buffs are fair game. Understanding that Edgar was a true powerhouse, Luna knew she had to give it her all. She decided to funnel every ounce of her strength into Melody, providing a boost so intense it left the girl feeling a bit lightheaded. Edgar braced himself to face this high-energy opponent, suspecting she might possess rare magic, though he honestly just wanted to go home and sleep. Melody declared she would get revenge for Ryushin, but Edgar shot back that her class had already wiped out the first-year representatives. Since the first years rely heavily on support magic, they decided to do the same. Meanwhile, a boy noticed something strange. Roy turned to Rayin, the student council president, asking if he had caught on to the trick they were using. He noted that Edgar being bolstered by such high-level support was a nightmare scenario, especially since teachers aren't allowed to intervene in class competitions. Melody marveled at the incredible strength of Luna's support, feeling a surge of power that made her movements significantly faster. As the battle finally commenced, she was determined to start the fight with an explosive opening. She lunged at the boy, putting everything she had into a high-velocity flying punch. He quickly threw up a barrier to intercept the blow, realizing her strikes were backed by intense fist pressure. Momentarily caught off guard by the impact, he lost his footing and tumbled to the ground. Melody didn't let the opening slide and pressed the attack, but Edgar skillfully dodged and sprang back to his feet. He was evading her strikes just by reading her movements, so she decided to utilize her magical boost to change tactics. She realized she could use her left arm to catch him completely off guard. With her new strategy in mind, she charged forward once again to execute the plan. Suddenly, the Elder's barrier shattered as Edgar inexplicably stepped outside the ring boundaries. Confused, Melody demanded to know what he was trying to pull, but he just offered a smirk. He revealed that he had received magical support of his own, making him much quicker on his feet. He mockingly invited her to keep playing, but that simple taunt was all it took. Enraged by his arrogance, Melody lost her cool and lunged at him with renewed fury. She closed the distance in an instant, delivering a devastating flying kick. The strike connected squarely, sending him crashing violently against the arena wall. To her horror, Edgar suddenly appeared right beside her, remarking on the hit before she realized she'd struck an illusion. He complimented her power but teased her for having heavy feet, leaving Melody gripped by the sudden fear of defeat. Without warning, the boy declared he was finished, claiming he had 0 mana or stamina left to keep going. The judge asked if he was truly forfeiting the match, and Edgar admitted he couldn't live with himself if he won by cheating. Rayin signaled Connie, who had been spectating the duel alongside him, as the judge realized no other students were stepping up. With the matches concluded, the judge officially announced that Professor Kina's class had secured the victory. Melody immediately confronted the boy, demanding to know why he had suddenly thrown in the towel. He offered a sheepish apology, admitting that he hadn't actually given the fight his all. Nearby, Tina apologized to Haruto and Rook for missing their turn, though they were just hyped that Class 1 won. Rook joked that even if he had entered the fray, he wouldn't have stood a chance against an opponent like that. Haruto mentioned he had a few spells he wanted to test, but doubted they would have worked anyway. Meanwhile, tempers were flaring. The 7th grade instructor stormed toward Edgar, furiously demanding an explanation for his performance. He barked that Edgar would face severe consequences for his pathetic display of surrendering. Rayin casually strolled into the middle of the confrontation, prompting the teacher to snap and ask what he wanted. Calmly, Rayin explained that his secretary had actually captured something quite interesting on video. He invited the furious instructor over to take a look at the recording for himself. The footage provided undeniable proof of the shady, underhanded tactics Edgar had used during the battle. Rayin asked the teacher to confirm Edgar hadn't technically lost, promising to handle the fallout so the boy wouldn't be punished. Despite the intervention, Edgar coldly told Rayin that he didn't feel like he owed him a single thing. Watching the exchange, Leafa realized she had definitely seen that mysterious guy somewhere before. Tina reminded her that he was the class representative who gave the speech during the opening ceremony for the seniors. He also happened to be the strongest student in the entire school. Haruto wondered if they could have beaten the council president's class. Brimming with confidence, Tina replied that they would have crushed the competition regardless of who they faced. She told the boys not to worry, as she was already planning even more intense training to help them level up. Rook was lost in thought, pondering Haruto's audacity to challenge the student council president. The next day, Melody reflected on her journey since her January acceptance, having spent the last month demolishing training fields and dueling upperclassmen. Her daydreaming was interrupted by Luna, who greeted the class with a mysterious surprise that no one had even asked about yet. Handing over a gift, Luna declared it was Valentine's Day and officially christened them best friends from that moment on. The realization hit Melody like a truck, causing her to spiral into a total panic. She freaked out, realizing she'd completely forgotten the kingdom's tradition where girls gift chocolates to friends and crushes during the second month. This custom was a relic from summoned heroes who introduced their world's culture, recreating familiar delicacies and holidays using local ingredients. Without wasting a single second, Melody bolted out to make up for lost time, leaving her classmates in the dust. Luna and Haruto were left standing there, completely bewildered by her sudden outburst. Seizing the moment to be alone with him, Luna wished Haruto a good morning and presented him with a box of chocolates. She explained it was a token of gratitude for saving her at the entrance ceremony, whispering that his box had a special extra just for him. Haruto thanked her, genuinely touched, though he couldn't help but wonder why he hadn't received any chocolates from Tina yet. When the twins, Mai and Mei, finally arrived, Luna made sure to include them in the chocolate giveaway as well. They accepted the gift with confusion, prompting Luna to ask if they were seriously unaware of the Valentine's Day tradition. Haruto was stunned. It seemed the concept of the holiday was completely foreign to the two of them. Observing their strange detachment from the world and their ethereal presence, he began to question if the sisters were even human. After Luna's explanation, Mai argued they owed Haruto nothing, leaving him baffled by her persistent cold shoulder. Soon, Tina arrived to start the lesson, finding the entire classroom buzzing with an unusual amount of excitement. She had brought a massive chocolate cake to share with the class, but the treats didn't stop there. Melody soon returned to the fray, serving up hot chocolate for every single one of her classmates. Tina thanked the students, noting it was the perfect accompaniment for the cake. As everyone enjoyed the dessert, Leafa discovered a single gold coin hidden in her slice. It was a rare lucky find, and overcome with emotion, Leafa vowed to treasure it forever. Haruto was thrilled, realizing the summoned heroes had brought the tradition of Valentine's Day to this world. It was the perfect opportunity to exchange sweets and strengthen bonds with friends and crushes alike. But then a sudden realization hit him. He hadn't received any chocolate from Tina yet. In previous years, he would have usually scored something by the morning. He reasoned that as a teacher, Tina had to be impartial in front of the class, but surely she had something special planned for her boyfriend. The day slowly turned into night, and just as Haruto was preparing to head to sleep, there was a knock. Tina stepped into the room, apologizing for the delay while explaining she was busy preparing a secret technique. She mentioned that in the hero's world, body chocolate was the ultimate gift for a significant other. Though clearly embarrassed, she wanted to make their first Valentine's Day as a couple truly unforgettable. Blushing deeply, she looked to her master and asked if she had nailed the presentation. Haruto, his eyes sparkling with pure joy, told her she had absolutely crushed it. Tina beamed at his approval and invited him to finally dig in. This led to a hilariously awkward and intimate moment between the two. Suddenly, Yuko burst through the door to flaunt her own chocolate cupcakes, but she stopped dead in her tracks. Taking in the scandalous scene, she froze like a deer in headlights. She frantically demanded an explanation while Tina scolded her for not knocking, but Haruto was just happy with his haul of delicious treats. Meanwhile, at the Ifris Magic Academy, Nao sat in the girls' dorm staring at the board in disbelief, having run out of moves. They had only just kicked off the game, yet for the first time in her life, she was facing a total wipeout. Luna remarked that seeing someone lose so decisively in this game was a rare sight indeed. They played match after match, and Nio insisted that Luna shouldn't go easy on her, even as she was getting absolutely wrecked. The next day, Luna told Haruto she'd invited Melody for a sleepover to lift her spirits, mentioning how Melody demanded she not hold back. Luna did exactly that, but now she feared she'd been too ruthless, leaving the poor girl feeling completely incompetent. Aside from being a board game prodigy, Luna is incredibly brilliant, capable of tackling complex magical theories without breaking a sweat. While Rushian and Melody aren't exactly scholars, their raw combat talent and physical abilities more than balance things out. Thinking it over, Haruto realized that every single student in this class was becoming increasingly interesting. Meanwhile, over in the student council room, a report was being filed on the most notable first-year prospects. The list included a divine magic user, the director's grandson, a top-ranked intern, a powerful elf, and even a beast girl martial artist. Rayin's assistant handed over the gathered intel, and the president found the growing list of talent to be quite intriguing. This was especially true since their class instructor is none other than the legendary heroine, Tina. Rayin ordered Connie to keep digging for details before directing a pile of confiscated gifts to be donated to a local orphanage. Back in the first-year classroom, Yuko was busy proclaiming her absolute and loyal devotion to her master. She pulled up her status window, revealing she's a level 99 demon slave, though she promised to behave unless her master ordered otherwise. When the others asked what she was capable of, Yuko explained her specialty is brainwashing anyone with a lower level than hers. Rook and Rushian remained unfazed, as they were safely sitting at levels 120 and 150 respectively. However, at level 80, Liafa was a prime target, leaving Haruto thankful he'd established a contract before Yuko tried anything dangerous. Soon, the rest of the class shared their stats, with Ryuka at level 62, while Mai, May, and Melody all sat at level 60. Luna praised her friend's progress while noting her own level was only 52, but in the corner, Haruto was feeling completely out of place. Ruka explained that as a support healer, leveling up is a grueling grind, yet she still managed to reach level 50. The group showered her with praise, insisting she was the backbone of the team and needed to believe in herself. Luna credited Haruto for her ability to study without the fear of brainwashing, prompting Yuko to demand he get some proper recognition. Despite his modest contributions, Haruto was happy to help, though he was secretly panicking about revealing his own level. With everyone checking their statuses, he knew his secret was on the verge of being exposed. Since he hadn't even told Tina about his curse yet, he decided it was finally time to let the cat out of the bag. Planning to apologize to Tina later for the secrecy, he spoke up to announce that his actual level was... But Rook suddenly cut him off, insisting he didn't need to see it. Or perhaps he was just too afraid to look. Rook admitted he once thought only his grandfather, the academy director, was stronger than him, until meeting Tina and the heroine-raised Haruto shattered his ego. He feared that seeing Haruto's true power now would completely break his spirit. Little did he know, his assumptions about Haruto's strength couldn't have been further from the truth. Lifa agreed, noting it would be a massive blow to their morale if a non-hero somehow surpassed Tina's level. One by one, the rest of the class joined in, claiming they had no desire to witness the boy's status window. Much to his relief, Haruto simply played along, claiming he understood exactly where they were coming from. Sometime later, the class gathered at the Hagen Forest training field for a special outdoor session. Rook questioned how their teacher secured a restricted area usually reserved for 5th years, but Rushian wasn't concerned with the logistics. He was more interested in the monsters they'd be hunting, suggesting a competition to see who could rack up the highest kill count. Lifa loved the idea of a challenge and suggested teaming up, while Luna offered to provide support. Rook quickly claimed Luna as his partner, while Rushian and Ryuka decided to pair up as well. Lafa asked Melody to partner up, and she enthusiastically agreed. Meanwhile, May and Mai teamed up to form their own duo. Yuko insisted on sticking with her master, claiming she needed to keep a close eye on him. With the teams finalized, Tina announced they were ready to begin training in the Hagen Forest. While confident in their skills, she warned everyone to remain vigilant at all times. She distributed whistles, instructing them to signal for her help if an emergency occurred. Each student also received a magical bracelet designed to track the rank and number of their kills. These devices would serve as the official scoreboard for their impromptu contest. Haruto was surprised by the sudden challenge, but Tina confirmed she had planned this all along. She explained that while these monsters wouldn't grant levels, the thrill of competition would sharpen their teamwork until noon. With a sharp clap of her hands, Tina officially signaled the start of the hunt. Immediately, the students scattered into the woods, racing toward their first targets. Haruto and Yuko quickly pulled ahead, with Yuko asking if they should start hunting immediately. Haruto questioned if her brainwashing worked on monsters. She confirmed it did on the dim-witted ones, though they'd be hard to find. However, our protagonist already had a much more efficient strategy in mind. He began casting a light-based spell, using fire as the foundation for his magic. By weaving in multiple elements, he caused the flames to manifest into the shape of a majestic beast. The fire initially resembled a horse, but the transformation continued to evolve. Next, he reinforced his defenses by coating his armor in a layer of crackling lightning. To ensure his offense was just as deadly, he wreathed his spear in a swirling vortex of wind magic. With their preparations complete, their own version of the fire spear was finally ready. Yuko realized this was no mere horse. It was a high-level flame knight. Haruto summoned a second knight to bolster their forces, ordering them to clear the path while reassuring a stunned Yuko. Concerned, she asked if he was okay after expending such high-level mana. She even kindly offered to share some of her own mana to help him recover. Suddenly, Tina's voice rang out through their bracelets, reminding them they were still in class and startling everyone listening in. She warned that she could monitor everything through the devices, and any suspicious behavior would result in immediate suspension and a failing grade. Yuko was fuming. It seemed like every time she tried to get close to her master, Tina was there to kill the mood. The sensei further threatened that if Yuko dared to remove the bracelet during class, she'd be going without dinner. To Yuko, missing out on Tina's legendary cooking was a fate worse than death. Listening in, the others quickly realized the conversation involved Tina, Haruto, and Yuko. Luna noted the obvious tension, while Haruto casually mentioned receiving chocolates from both girls. Rook remarked that it must be tough for Luna, seeing as she clearly had feelings for Haruto as well. Flustered, she asked if her crush was really that obvious, to which Rook replied that Haruto was the only one oblivious to it. Rook teased that she must be disappointed not to be paired with Haruto, though he was personally thrilled to be her partner. Haruto recalled how he had also tried to help her during the entrance exams. Blushing, she admitted she should have probably given him some chocolates as well. As the group chatted about their classmates, a wild wolf suddenly emerged from the shadows. While the girl braced for a fight, Rook explained that these monsters were passive unless provoked. Gaining experience here was useless anyway, as the wolves were merely magical illusions created for the lesson. Sensing something sinister about the wolves, she quickly warned Rook and magically boosted his speed. Moving with newfound haste, the world seemed to slow to a crawl as he watched the wolves lunge. He barely conjured a barrier to block a lethal strike, questioning if this was still just a training exercise. Fearing the worst, he shouted for Luna to brace for a heavy impact. Seconds later, a deafening crash shook the very earth beneath them. Just as the dust began to settle, he caught a glimpse of something terrifying in the shadows. Dozens of glowing eyes peered out from the dense tree line, fixated on their next meal. Suddenly, a stampede of magical bulls erupted from the forest, a rare and deadly sight for this region. These high-level beasts possessed immense magic resistance, and despite their rarity, an entire herd now stood before him. Not far off, Melody was busy acting as bait to lure the monsters into a trap. Meanwhile, Lifa was drawing her magical bow, preparing to unleash a devastating arrow to clear the path. But the moment they regrouped, they found themselves completely surrounded by even more hideous creatures. Ryujin, however, was in his element, relishing the thrill of fighting such powerful monsters. He cheered with every beast he struck down, seemingly unfazed by the danger. His sister snapped at him to stay focused, sensing that this relentless onslaught was far from normal. The monsters kept coming in waves, and they had to stay sharp just to survive the rest of the period. She warned that her mana was running dangerously low, and she might not be able to revive him if things got worse. Elsewhere, the duo of Mai and Mei wandered through the woods, sensing a disturbing presence in the air. Mei asked her sister if this was a demonic vibe, but she replied that it felt more like the aura of Lord Ifrit. They questioned why the King of Fire Spirits would be here, noting the energy felt even more overwhelming than Ifrit himself. Tina observed the scene through her bracelets, noticing a strange irregularity in the monster's movements. In those moments, she realized they were being manipulated by an external force from outside the forest. Suddenly, every animal in the vicinity turned their gaze toward the heavens. Hovering high above was the Shikigami, the loyal servant of the evil god. She was currently tracking the specific mana signature of the target she had been hunting. There was no doubt about it. Her prey was definitely hiding somewhere within that forest. She sensed several powerful auras nearby, and secretly hoped Haruto hadn't grown too strong. Before the boy's reincarnation, she had asked the evil god what kind of curse he intended to inflict on him. Her master explained that even rendering someone useless required an immense amount of mana during the reincarnation and cursing process. He feared the reincarnated soul might die too quickly, which would be a waste of effort. So he ordered his assistant to find a specific curse within the forbidden archives. Despite his sinister nature, he was still a god who understood that those summoned from other worlds are usually blessed with epic physical and magical abilities. His assistant delved deep into the library, meticulously cataloging every curse in existence. Realizing that searching solo would take an eternity, he decided to speed up the process. He created a legion of clones, tasking them with reading every single book in the archives simultaneously. Eventually, he presented a fixed status curse to the evil god, who initially dismissed it for being far too basic. The assistant noted it was hidden behind a safe, suggesting it was a high-tier hex, but the evil god had so many curses he couldn't even keep track of them all. She wondered if being permanently stuck at level 1 would be enough, imagining the boy's initial excitement turning into total despair, a spectacle she found amusing. However, they were unaware of the real reason this curse was hidden. The evil god had once tried to modify a curse to cap a person's maximum level. The experiment backfired, turning the curse into a blessing that allowed the user to expend infinite mana since their status numbers were locked. He stashed it away and eventually forgot it existed. To recover the massive amount of mana lost during the ritual, the evil god fell into a long, deep slumber, paying a hefty price for his divine meddling. While he slept, the Shikigami used her long-range magic to keep tabs on the reincarnated boy, but she couldn't find a trace of him, leading her to believe he had already kicked the bucket. However, since a new hero hadn't manifested yet, it was highly probable he was still alive. Her long-range detection turned up nothing, leading her to suspect some form of magical interference. Just as she began to track the elapsed time, her crystal ball finally flared to life. Back in the physical realm, Tina was busy issuing an urgent warning via the students' bracelets, canceling class and ordering everyone back to the extraction point. She alerted them to the monster's erratic behavior and told them to remain on high alert. She further cautioned them to keep their distance, as she was preparing to unleash a devastating long-range spell. With the warning sent, Tina surged toward the location where the Shikigami had appeared. She demanded the intruder's identity, sensing they were the one driving the forest creatures into a frenzy. The heroic blood coursing through Tina's veins was screaming that this person was linked to the evil god and she was more than ready to strike. In a blinding flash of speed, the teacher closed the distance, seizing the girl's arm and demanding to know her purpose for being there. Before the girl could even utter a word, Tina launched a preemptive strike. The students watched from afar as a colossal explosion illuminated the entire horizon. But to Tina's utter disbelief, her target remained completely unscathed. As the smoke dissipated, the Shikigami emerged, casually remarking that she'd been caught off guard. In response, Tina declared that she would no longer be pulling any of her punches. Ignoring the girl's attempts to speak, Tina immediately invoked the devastating Thor's hammer ability. While the evil god remained in his deep slumber, this Shikigami was tasked with keeping a watchful eye on him. Despite having nothing to do with the monsters, she wondered why this nightmare was unfolding. She questioned if this was her burden to bear, yet she found herself unable to retreat. Trapped, she desperately tried to launch a counterattack against Tina, but the heroine was already one step ahead, looming right behind her. Tina relentlessly pressed the assault, closing the distance to strike. Flustered, the girl feared she truly was destined to become the next goddess of evil. If this chaos continued, the god of creation would surely turn his gaze toward her. Mid-battle, she spotted the boy running below, finally confirming that he was still alive. She rushed toward Tina, remarking how lucky it was to have such a powerful ally nearby. She urged her to protect the boy at all costs, offering the request as a final parting gift. Suddenly, a massive explosion erupted, veiling the battlefield in a thick shroud of smoke. Before anyone could react, a monstrous hand lunged through the haze and grabbed Tina's face. The creature plummeted, dragging her violently toward the earth. Hearing the piercing screams, Haruto turned his gaze back. He watched in horror as Tina was pinned down by the grotesque beast. Rushian arrived in a flash, ready to intercept the mysterious demon and save his comrade. He unleashed a strike to free his sensei, puzzled by the nature of this unknown threat. To his surprise, however, the demon wasn't nearly as agile as its appearance suggested. He kept up the pressure, shouting for Lifa to take hold of their sensei. But since she wasn't prepared, the girl quickly passed the sensei to Melody. Displaying incredible agility, she vaulted through the trees to catch Tina before she could slam into the forest floor. She urgently called for Ryuka's healing magic as Tina's consciousness began to fade. Ryuka realized the situation was dire. This wasn't just a simple case of exhaustion. The truth suddenly clicked, and she shrieked a warning to her brother about the monster's lethal poison. At that moment, Ryushin finally understood exactly why Tina had collapsed. Luna immediately cast her support magic, surging Ryushin's stats and fortifying his defense to the limit. He knew he had to strike the demon while maintaining a cautious, tactical distance. He had to hold the line or they were all as good as dead. Recalling the class tournament, after losing his duel, Leiafa visited Ryushin in the infirmary while he was fuming over Haruto's sudden forfeit. Lifa comforted him, mentioning that while he was unconscious, Haruto had acknowledged Ryushin's skill, admitting the Draconian was a true powerhouse. Lifa never expected a Draconian to receive such praise from a human, and she was thrilled his strength was finally recognized. Back in the present, Ryushin knew this life-or-death struggle was nothing like a school competition. With a roar, he charged forward, unleashing the full fury of his dragon claws. The others witnessed the raw power of a Draconian, yet even with that strength, the demon remained a terrifying threat. Ryushin thanked Luna for the buff, but he knew they couldn't relax as dragonization was rapidly draining his mana. He ordered the others to grab Tina and retreat before the situation turned fatal. Suddenly, Haruto's voice pierced the air, warning him of a presence creeping up from the rear. To everyone's horror, the demon rose once more, radiating an overwhelming aura of pure malice. Now Yuko was certain about exactly who they were facing. Rook unleashed his lightning chains to bind their monstrous opponent, screaming for Ryushin to retreat immediately. Since Draconian bodies hardened during transformation, Haruto wondered if anyone else could truly withstand the demon's might. As the demon shattered the chains, Yuko cried out that its mana levels were skyrocketing. Meanwhile, from a safe distance, the sisters Mai and Mei observed the brutal spectacle. Mai questioned if it was heartless to simply watch, but decided they should hold back for the time being. She noted that if Haruto couldn't survive this trial on his own, he wouldn't be worthy of a contract. Mei noticed her sister spoke Haruto's name with a hint of genuine affection. It was a change that had clearly started the moment the training field was leveled. Enchanted by his raw magical prowess, she had even begun addressing him as Haruto-sama. Mai wondered if she was being too critical, though they both agreed his contract with a nine-tailed fox was legendary. Furthermore, the intensity of his flames was nothing short of extraordinary. Mai believed that by forming a bond with him, she could finally reach her full potential. With a heavy heart, Mei reminded her that she only felt this way because she'd never partnered with a human before. Mai apologized for being pushy, promising not to force a contract since she knew Mei wanted to choose her next partner carefully. The sisters had always been inseparable, making the idea of sharing a contractor feel bittersweet. Though it felt a bit isolating, she was proud to see her sister finally standing on her own 2 feet. Suddenly the mood shifted. Everyone was in grave danger, and it was time for them to intervene. Excitement surged through Mai as she insisted they move forward with the plan. But just as they prepared to depart, the dogs sensed a disturbance and erupted into a frantic, warning frenzy. Mai warned her sister that an entity was approaching with an aura as devastating as Ifrit's. She could feel the crushing weight of the encroaching heat before the source of that monstrous power finally materialized. Standing before them was the flame knight that Haruto had conjured, and Mai found its presence absolutely breathtaking. She stood mesmerized, noting that the knight's flames possessed a level of purity she had never seen. Suddenly, the figure vanished as mysteriously as it appeared, leaving them baffled by such high-level magic. Mai grabbed her sister's hand, determined to investigate the source of the phenomenon. She realized that if this magic belonged to Haruto, she would have to convince him to forge a contract with her. If Haruto could also master water magic, it would finally allow Mai to remain by her sister's side forever. It was a desperate wish, but she felt like the only one unable to break free from their shared destiny. Meanwhile, Ushin was still locked in a brutal struggle against the demon left behind by the Shikigami. The creature's strength was overwhelming, capable of piercing even the boy's reinforced draconic skin. The demon's speed was relentless, following up every strike with a lethal precision. In a horrifying flash of movement, one of those attacks severed the boy's hand completely. As the blow landed, Ushin felt a lethal demonic toxin beginning to course rapidly through his system. Seeing his comrade in peril, Rook desperately scrambled to save his friend. He whipped out his light whip ability, snagging the boy and yanking him back from the front lines. He screamed for Haruto to act, knowing they were all doomed if he didn't intervene, as Rook lacked the strength to win. He shouted that if Haruto was hiding any real power, now was the ultimate time to unleash it. Haruto hesitated to use his magic, fearing he'd hit his friends, but suddenly, something erupted beneath the demon. Sharp shards of ice began crawling up the beast's limbs, freezing it in place. High on the cliff, the sisters arrived, with Mei casting the spell while Mai panicked because she couldn't find a flaming horse. To the absolute shock of both Mai and Haruto, the situation took another turn. A flaming knight suddenly materialized to confront the demon head-on, and it wasn't just one. 2 of these fiery guardians were now ready to throw down. But with lightning speed, the monster shattered the core of the first knight, making it vanish instantly. However, when the other knight's arm was ripped off, it regenerated as if it were nothing. Yuko explained that they needed to destroy the demon's core, and if her master unleashed his true power, it'd be over in a second. Just then, Tina finally woke up and groggily asked about the chaos. Yuko mentioned she was conserving her energy by only using 2 of her tails. But for her master's sake, she was prepared to unleash unleash an ocean of mana. She ordered everyone into her protective barrier, leaving the rest of the fight to Haruto. She gave the boy the green light to finally stop holding back. Before he charged in, Tina stopped him with a request, warning that weak magic wouldn't scratch a demon. She explained that demons are pure evil, capable of toppling nations and can regenerate limbs in the blink of an eye. The only way to win is to use overwhelming firepower to completely obliterate its core. This was his moment to go all out and protect everyone he cared about. Last time Tina gave him instructions, he ignored them and things went south. He couldn't afford another failure, so this time he'd follow her orders to the letter. Determined to meet her expectations, he prepared to unleash his full potential. He cast a devastating spell designed to pierce right through the enemy's defenses. Meanwhile, the Shikigami was racing toward the temple where the evil god resided. As usual, no one was there to greet her, leaving her to clean the massive temple and repair the damage alone. She also had to calculate the negative energy consumption, manage expenses, and even draft designs for the next Demon King. The workload was immense, and she was forced to handle every single detail by herself. She found it frustratingly impressive that the evil god could gain power simply by sleeping. Suddenly, the talisman representing the demon she had sent against Haruto's crew shattered. She had been so desperate to escape that she'd summoned the demon without a second thought. Now, she felt a sense of relief knowing her intuition about their strength was correct. Her plan worked. The demon was neutralized, and the target remained protected. It was clear to her now that someone incredibly powerful was lurking in that forest. Although the demon was defeated, the surrounding woods were now engulfed in a raging inferno. Yuko's barrier was reaching its limit, meaning they had to extinguish the flames immediately. Haruto stepped forward, telling Yuko to hold on just a little longer while he handled the fire. Seeing the scale of the magic, Rook asked the boy if he was okay after such an exertion. Due to the evil god's curse, Haruto was restricted to spells costing no more than 10 mana. To bypass this, he began weaving countless 10-mana threads into the air, forming a complex magic circle. He continued until the air was filled with 1,000 glowing characters, leaving his friends in absolute awe. In reality, it was just a massive stack of beginner spells, all to summon a spirit capable of dousing the flames. With a surge of mana, he summoned the great spirit, Undine. Upon appearing, she greeted the boy warmly, noting it had been far too long since their last meeting. He agreed, noting 3 years had passed. Undine admitted she was doing well enough, though she'd grown lonely since he hadn't called upon her. The spirit then turned her attention toward the twins, recognizing them immediately. Haruto was stunned by their mutual recognition as Undine questioned why the twins were in the human world and if they'd found contract partners. One of the twins sighed, admitting they hadn't found anyone suitable just yet. When asked if she had a contract with Haruto, Undine confirmed it, but the boy interrupted, reminding them the fire was still raging. Though Mei was often lost in her own world, Haruto called for her assistance, knowing her prowess with water magic. Haruto instructed Lifa to unleash the powerful spell from the class competition, while Undine prepared to amplify and spread his water magic. Nearby, Yuko was reaching her absolute limit, as maintaining the protective barrier was taking a massive toll on her. Without wasting a second, Haruto and Undine combined their efforts to suppress the inferno. Lifa conjured a powerful, focused gust of wind, providing a massive boost to the boy's surging water magic. He urged her to keep the pressure on with several more successive wind bursts. Undine summoned thick rain clouds, but the unnatural flames were so intense that she feared her rain alone wouldn't be enough. Calling on the twins for backup, Mei asked her sister to channel her remaining magical power into a joint effort. Together, they manifested massive ice crystals and launched them high into the atmosphere. They continued generating ice at a rapid pace, stockpiling the frozen shards within the clouds. Mei then told Haruto to blast fire into the sky to heat the clouds, as her sister was nearly drained of mana. However, he still had to focus on supporting Undine to keep their primary water magic flowing. Then, struck by a sudden inspiration, he summoned Ifrit to lend a helping hand. Both Mei and Mai were absolutely stunned by the spectacle. Mei, a devoted admirer of Ifrit, was shocked that Haruto actually held a contract with him. Seeing him in person, she became even more captivated by his overwhelming power. In that moment, she finally understood exactly how Mai felt when she first met him. She even considered forming her own contract with Lord Haruto, regardless of the consequences. However, hearing her sister refer to him as Haruto-sama left Mei completely blindsided. While one girl hated being drenched, the other seemed to be enjoying every second of it. Realizing she had let her true personality slip in front of everyone was beyond embarrassing. She needed to compose herself. She definitely wasn't going to let Haruto slip through her fingers. Meanwhile, news of the chaotic events in the forest finally reached the student council room. The fact that a demon went undetected on campus was a massive security failure, leading to all afternoon classes being canceled. Connie, the secretary, reported that Tina's class was the one present in the forest during the incident. Aside from a few minor battle scrapes, everyone was fortunately accounted for and safe. The president inquired if it was the renowned heroine, Tina, who had ultimately slain the demon. Connie clarified that while the details were hazy, Tina wasn't the one who delivered the finishing blow. The one responsible for the demon's defeat was Haruto, the third son of Count Silverleaf. Edgar recalled the name, remembering Haruto as the student who blew a massive hole in the training field. Connie then added that Haruto had been summoned to the principal's office for a formal discussion. Upon arriving, our protagonist was surprised to find himself face-to-face with Rook's grandfather. When Tina arrived at the office, Haruto was relieved to see she was unharmed. The principal mentioned to Haruto that his grandson Rook couldn't stop talking about him. Rook had always been more skilled than his peers, which led him to neglect honing his natural talents. However, after meeting Haruto, he finally found the motivation to take his magic training seriously. He thanked the young man for being Rook's friend, expressing his gratitude as he reached out. As they shook hands, the principal realized Haruto didn't have a high level at all. In fact, he was only level 1. Haruto wasn't surprised the head of a magic academy saw through him, but Tina immediately jumped to his defense. The principal apologized for his bluntness, but Haruto shrugged it off, knowing the truth would eventually come out. Still, he asked the principal to keep the following revelations strictly confidential. The principal assured him that the academy respects privacy, promising total secrecy. Haruto thanked him, adding that he wanted Tina to know the truth as well. With that, he displayed his status screen for both of them to see. Tina was absolutely stunned to see that he was indeed still level 1. Suddenly, it all clicked. This was why he had been relying on weak spells this entire time. The principal quickly spotted the curse locking Haruto's status and asked if this was the secret he was hiding. Haruto explained that an evil god had cursed him during his reincarnation, permanently trapping him at level 1. Tina was horrified, struggling to believe that the legendary evil god of chaos actually existed. Haruto apologized for the secrecy, explaining that the evil god wanted him to be a complete nobody in this new world. The principal noted that the plan clearly backfired since Haruto defeated a demon, leading Haruto to believe the god made a mistake. To better explain his situation, Haruto asked if he could demonstrate his magic. The principal led him to the garden, where Haruto told him to keep a close eye on his mana count. Haruto casts a fire spell, and to their collective shock, his mana pool remains untouched. He explains that no matter how much magic he expends, his reserves never deplete. A stunned Tina wonders if this is actually a byproduct of his curse. Haruto admits he once feared he was stuck at level 0 forever, but now suspects the evil god may have botched the curse entirely. The principal realizes his mana is infinite, yet questions how a low-level mage could possess the output needed to slay a demon. To demonstrate his unique method, the boy begins weaving a new spell. He explains his technique, firing multiple low-cost spells and fusing them together, such as layering fire and dark magic for a massive power boost. The principal is floored by his chantless casting, while Tina notes that this mastery is the true source of his overwhelming strength. Haruto reveals that the blast which leveled the training field was the equivalent of 50,000 fire lances, then thanks Tina for stopping it. However, she humbly admits she did nothing, as the magic stone bore the brunt of that devastating impact. Being an isekai protagonist, Haruto was always bound to be strong, but this revelation puts him in a league of his own. The principal urges him to maintain control before Haruto eventually heads outside to wait for Tina. Tina catches up, explaining the principal is eager to help, mostly to ensure Haruto doesn't accidentally vaporize the academy. Soon, her expression softens into a look of deep regret as she offers a sincere apology. She laments that despite their time together, she never noticed his curse or the burden he carried, making her feel utterly helpless. Haruto flashes a warm smile, reassuring her that his journey hasn't been all that difficult. After all, he considers himself lucky to have had the world's best teacher by his side. It was her guidance that allowed him to master magic synthesis and rapid-fire casting. He finishes by telling her that he hopes to continue relying on her support for a long time to come. Watching from the shadows, Connie picks up on the romantic tension between them and asks Rayin if she feels the spark too. Name? He replied that the famous heroine team, Tina in front of the boy, is just an ordinary lovesick girl. The next day, while he and Yuko were chilling during the the break, Mei and Mei showed up and asked to talk to him. He noticed that Mai just called him Sama too. They asked to chat in a more private spot, and the boy was curious about what they wanted to discuss. They started to undress, and he asked what the two were doing. Then they began to glow intensely, and they transformed into two beauties that looked like angels. They told the protagonist that this is what they really are. Haruto asked if they were spirits. The boy's wild thoughts started to bubble up, and he lost focus on the main point until one of them caught his attention. He snapped back to reality and asked how he could help them. Then it hit him that they were spirits, which explained why they vibed so well with Undine. They asked if he was down to make a contract with them, both totally crushing on Haruto's magic. That's when the boy realized they were into his magic, which was awesome since he already had Tina. His goal in this world was to be as strong as a hero and protect Tina, so teaming up with a spirit to boost his powers sounded lit. May could show up in the human world without a contract and even go human, so there was no way these two were weak. So the boy was all in on making the contract with both of them. Right away, they asked for his permission and sealed the deal with a kiss. When a contract gets made in the human world, the spirit bounces back to the spirit realm, and then the human can summon them whenever. Haruto hoped the girls had a great time at school and decided to overclock the summoning circle to extend their stay and amplify their magical output. His goal was simple. He wanted to bring both of them into this world at the exact same time. Sensing the familiar light auras of May and Mai, he channeled his light spirit to finalize the summoning ritual. But instead of the twin spirits he expected, a mysterious old man materialized before him. May and Mai should have been the ones to appear, but something had clearly gone off the rails. Standing before him was the legendary king of celestial spirits. Haruto was stunned, questioning if this was really the king or if the girls had somehow fused together during the summoning. The elder greeted him warmly, confirming that he was indeed the sovereign of every spirit on the planet. Our protagonist was completely blindsided, having never encountered a spirit of this magnitude before. However, the king was in the middle of urgent business and asked to return to his realm, prompting Haruto to wonder why he couldn't just leave on his own. The king explained that he was now bound to the boy's will, as no one expected a human to possess enough mana to force his summoning. Haruto felt a wave of awkwardness, realizing he had likely made the summoning circle far too powerful. The king mentioned a critical matter regarding his daughters and bowed deeply, requesting Haruto's formal permission to depart. Haruto granted the request immediately. He couldn't bring himself to say no to a king showing him that much respect. Pleased with the boy's humble response, the king decided to wrap up the contract quickly. He gave the boy a kiss, a gesture that triggered a sudden flashback to Haruto's first summoning years ago. Back then, he told Tina that for his very first contract, he was dead set on obtaining a fire-type spirit. Following her advice to visualize the flames, he focused his intent and successfully summoned the mighty Ifrit. This feat absolutely blew Tina away, as summoning such a high-tier spirit on a first attempt was unheard of. To finalize their pact, Ifrit held him close and delivered a kiss to officially seal the contract. He suddenly recalled a similar sensation from back when he formed his contract with Undine. In that moment, seeing Tina's intricate expression made his heart skip a beat. Returning to the present, the Spirit King promised they'd cross paths again before vanishing into the portal. To prevent any further chaos, Haruto decided to summon Mai and May individually this time. He made sure to scale down the summoning circle to keep the magical output manageable. Visualizing Mai's form with absolute clarity, he channeled his mana through the fire spear to complete the ritual. The execution was flawless, and he successfully pulled Mai back into his realm. But as she rushed toward him, a booming voice commanded her to stop. The Spirit King himself, the father of Mai and May, emerged from the portal to confront the boy seeking a contract. First, the king intended to give Haruto a true demonstration of his overwhelming authority. A tense silence hung between them as they locked eyes, neither side willing to back down. Haruto boldly declared that if the king wanted proof of his power, he'd simply force him to his knees. As the old man tried to retreat to his world, Haruto lunged into the portal after him to demand an explanation. The king complained, asking why Haruto was so intent on humiliating him in front of his own daughter. Haruto reminded him he was only proving his strength as requested, leading the king to admit he hadn't recognized Haruto's potential. To Haruto's surprise, the old man conceded that he was actually more than worthy. He explained that a spirit of his caliber usually requires the collective prayers of humanity to manifest, yet Haruto summoned him alone. This feat was undeniable proof of Haruto's staggering and rare magical potential. Haruto then inquired if there were any specific conditions he needed to follow. The king agreed, noting that his daughters were so precious that all his worries vanished whenever he looked at them. He asked the boy to promise he wouldn't make them fight in tough battles. If he needed to battle a powerful opponent, he should summon him. Haruto told him to lift his head and promised he'd treat both of them right and would call for his power when the time came. The boy said it takes time to summon him at any moment. he would give him a bit of mana in advance. The king was shocked, since even after using mana to summon him, he could still give mana like that. And he left wondering what that boy was. That night at the boy's mansion, Tina heard some screams and rushed to check what was up when she opened the bathroom door. Or she saw clothes scattered everywhere. When she opened the shower stall, she asked what that meant. The boy quickly said it wasn't what it looked like. Tina asked what it wasn't looking like. So what was going on there, leaving the boy pale with fear? Just a smile from Tina was scarier than a horror movie. Tina said that not only Yuko, but even the two had been brought to that mansion. May and May were starting to get freaked out by Tina and clung to their master. Yuko, taking advantage, jumped on the MC, saying she was super scared. Haruto thought all of this was wild, but he needed a quick fix to chill Tina out, so he had the genius idea of inviting her to join them. She processed the sentence slowly in her mind when she finished, she threw the clothes in the boy's face and said she was fine and they could enjoy themselves alone. He couldn't get it, since even though they slept together, she was against bathing with him. Yuko, getting out of the bathtub, said that usually big guys have big desires, and she, as a nine-tailed fox, still seemed a bit immature, but she was proud of her body that attracts attention. Plus, May and May were also rare gems. She continued, saying that despite being surrounded by three lovely people like them, he still invited Miss Tina to bathe with them and called that lust. Then he tried to explain himself, saying he just wanted to invite her to take a warm bath with everyone together, but to take off the convo and figure out how he ended up in this mess. Let's rewind a bit while taking a bath. Yuko entered the bathroom and said she wanted to join her master. Because usually Tina gets in her way, but today would be the day she would have babies with him. And she jumped on the boy already undressed. Suddenly, a wall of ice popped up, making her hit her face. The boy asked what Mai and Mai were doing there. Mai said she felt something off in his heartbeat, but now everything would be cool because they were there. Mai asked what she should do with Yuko. Leave her near death or destroy her. But scared, the boy told her to do nothing. He said that place was not for fighting. It was for washing up, and because of that dirty shoes were not allowed there then. Then the two said they'd also enjoy and wash with him. While they were taking off their clothes, that was when Tina walked in. After that, Mai told her she finally showed her true colors, getting all cheerful. They were curious about Jaratino and compared his size to their dad's. A DS, normally in situ. Situations like this, he'd react way stronger, but he's a saint and can manipulate his mana, which means he can also control the mana in Hard Tino. And that brings us up to speed on everything that's happened so far. After Tina stormed out of the bathroom, Haruto followed her to clear the air. She was busy cooking, clearly annoyed that even with her around, the boy was still out bathing with other girls. She struggled to understand how he pulled this off. While she was older than the others, she was still quite young for an elf, and she couldn't help but wonder why Haruto never invited her. Haruto watched her sulk, finding her reaction rather amusing, while Tina beat herself up for declining his earlier invitation. Sneaking up behind her, he asked if she'd like to join him in the hot springs for their next trip. Startled, Tina jumped and frantically asked how much he'd overheard, to which Haruto nonchalantly replied, "Just a bit." He reassured her that he didn't think she was old at all. In fact, he thought she was a total catch. It was his smooth way of confirming he'd heard every single word of her private rant. Once more, he extended the invitation. A trip to the hot springs. Just the two of them. The idea of a private getaway left her feeling uncharacteristically bashful, but ultimately, she couldn't resist and happily accepted the boy's offer. It was a deal. They'd head out the very next time they both had a free day. Shifting gears, Haruto asked what the plan was for their massive stockpile of potatoes. It looked like they'd be eating nothing but spuds for a while, but Haruto noted they'd finish them quickly if all 5 of them ate together. Tina paused, confused by his mention of 5 people sharing the meal. Our protagonist explained that the 2 Mays had become his spirits, and he was planning to let them stay in the guest room. By promising her that the hot spring trip would remain strictly for the 2 of them, Haruto finally managed to calm Tina down. Eventually, the day finally arrived for their highly anticipated trip to the springs. Ever since he first asked her, Tina had been absolutely buzzing with excitement for this moment. Ever since yesterday, she had been checking on him every single chance she got. In truth, this was her daily routine, constantly stealing glances whenever he wasn't looking. Now, she finally had him all to herself. But as she drifted into a daydream, a letter suddenly slid under her door. It was a note from Haruto, asking her to meet him at the Central Plaza fountain at 10 o'clock sharp. Her heart began to race. She was incredibly nervous for what would be her very first date with Haruto. It seemed that one of her greatest wishes was finally about to come true. She arrived right on time to find him waiting, looking more handsome than ever in his stylish attire. She quickly apologized for the wait, but he kindly insisted he had only just arrived himself. Haruto complimented her outfit, telling her she looked absolutely radiant today. His praise left her feeling completely giddy and lightheaded. As he took her hand, she followed his lead, feeling entirely swept off her feet. She was barely keeping it together, unsure if her heart could handle much more of this excitement. Haruto led Tina toward a carriage, leaving her stunned that they would be traveling in such style. Once inside, he asked if she liked it. She admitted it was beautiful, though she worried it was far too expensive. He explained that for their first date, only the finest carriage in the city would do, flashing a smile that nearly made her faint. She told him that as long as they were together, she'd be happy even if they were riding in a wheelbarrow. The fact that he went to such great lengths for their date proved just how much he truly cared for her. With this grand gesture, he had officially earned her forgiveness for that awkward bathroom incident from a few days ago. Meanwhile, back at the mansion, Yuko was bored stiff without her master. Mai and Mei chided her, saying she should stop napping and start her chores. Yuko grumbled that she'd exhausted the mana stored in her tails and desperately needed to catch some Z's. Yuko planned to rest as much as possible, though she knew her mana would recover much faster if she napped alongside her master. Meanwhile, the twins were getting hungry and remembered the food Tina had prepared. They headed to the kitchen to warm up the meal, but rather than using the stove, Mei decided to show off with some fire magic. Unfortunately, she lacked control, causing an explosion that blew up the kitchen and jolted Yuko awake. When Yuko rushed into the room, she found the two girls standing sheepishly in front of the cooking pot. The meal inside had been reduced to charcoal, sending Yuko into a brief spiral of despair over the loss of Tina's delicious curry. However, she quickly bounced back, deciding to whip up some fresh omelets for the newcomers instead. Returning to the date, Haruto and Tina were strolling through a dense forest on their way to the hot springs. Knowing dangerous monsters lurked in the shadows, Tina began stretching, ready to jump into battle at a moment's notice. Haruto stopped her, reminding her they were on a date, and he didn't want her ruining her beautiful outfit. To ensure her safety, the boy summoned his Knight of Flames once again to act as their bodyguard. He mentioned he'd cleared out most of the monsters the day before, but a few stragglers might still be hiding nearby. Tina appreciated the gesture, but reminded him she was level 250 and more than capable of slaying dragons if necessary. Reflecting on all the years she had spent protecting him, Haruto asked her to step back and finally let him be the one to protect her this time. It felt strange realizing the boy she'd looked after since childhood was now becoming such a capable and reliable man. They finally arrived at the hot springs, where Tina was stunned to find the entire place completely deserted. With a grin, Haruto revealed he had reserved the entire resort just for the two of them, which is when Tina had a sudden realization. This would be the very first time he'd see her in her most natural birthday suit state. Meanwhile, back at the Silverly Mansion, Haruto's father was about to get a massive shock when he saw the bill for the reservation. He had indeed booked the entire location, but strictly to ensure their absolute privacy. He cast a powerful perception-blocking spell to mask their presence. From the outside, the hot spring was completely invisible, allowing Tina to finally let her guard down and relax. She marveled at how impressive he had become, especially when he admitted the privacy was because he wanted her all to himself. When offered the choice of bathing separately or together, Tina caught him off guard by choosing to stay by his side. As they prepared to enter the water, Tina found herself unable to take her eyes off of him. Feeling her intense gaze, the boy admitted that being stared at was making him feel a bit self-conscious. Having raised him since he was an infant, Tina knew his physique better than anyone else ever could. She was intimately familiar with every detail of his growth over the years. It had been a while since she'd seen him this close, and she couldn't help but notice how much more toned he had become. She admired how he always maintained such a sharp appearance and flawless complexion. The moment they stepped into the water, a wave of pure tranquility washed over her. She could actually feel her mana reserves beginning to rapidly recharge. Tina sighed in bliss, thanking him for bringing her to such an incredible place. He returned the sentiment, but Tina secretly hoped he would finally turn around and face her. Tired of waiting for him to make a move, she took the initiative and clung to him. Her sudden boldness left him completely flustered and at a loss for words. Tina teased him gently, asking if he was really going to keep ignoring her. Haruto asked if she was truly certain about this, and she gave him a firm, unwavering yes. Her desire to be seen and acknowledged by him had grown far too strong to ignore. When he finally turned to look at her, he was met with a breathtaking sight. Struck by her stunning beauty, he apologized for staring. But Tina teased that his hands were welcome to explore since her body belonged only to him. She invited him to touch her wherever he desired, leaning in close to seal the moment with a passionate kiss. Afterward, he confessed that he'd been aching for another taste of her lips, as their first kiss felt like a lifetime ago. Tina was momentarily stunned, She'd mentally prepared for a much more intimate encounter, and his romantic side caught her off guard. However, she quickly leaned back in, whispering that she wanted even more. The two lost track of time, locked in an embrace as the world around them faded away. Eventually, reality set in, and it was finally time for them to depart the forest. Haruto began drawing an intricate magic circle on the ground, piquing Tina's curiosity. He explained it was for teleportation, sparing her a long, sweaty trek back home by making the journey instantaneous. This high-level magic allows the user to instantly travel to any location they've previously visited. While rare even among heroes, Haruto's status as a sage made such complex spells second nature to him. Still, Tina was skeptical he could really teleport. He reassured her, explaining that he could fold space to relocate to any point where he'd placed a magic anchor. Taking her hand firmly in his, they both stepped into the center of the glowing array. Within the blink of an eye, the forest vanished, and they materialized in an entirely new town. Once they arrived, he asked if she was hungry, mentioning a renowned restaurant just around the corner. Eager to extend their date, she agreed immediately, though she wondered what had become of the carriage that brought them there. He revealed he'd already sent it back, asking if she'd prefer to return home the same way. He suggested that if she was up for it, they could stay in the village tonight and have their belongings delivered, though they could always just warp back. Naturally, she jumped at the chance, thrilled by the prospect of having Haruto all to herself for the rest of the night. The two spent the night together, finally embracing their new lives as a couple. The following morning at the Ifris Magic Academy, everyone noticed a distinct change in the air between Professor Tina and Haruto. Nearby, Rushian trained to regain his strength under the watchful eye of his sister, Ryuka, who ensured his recovery stayed on track. Draconians are humans born with dragon blood, granting them combat skills that far surpass any ordinary warrior. Though few in number, they are a proud race who only bow to the strong and remain loyal to one partner for life. However, the dragon god revolutionized their society by establishing the sacred dragon priestess system. These priestesses receive divine protection and cast powerful healing spells to spread faith in the dragon god across all races. This faith fuels the dragon god's power, which in turn grants dragons and draconians their status as the ultimate race. Priestesses also seek powerful mates from any race, as the dragon god ensures their children inherit their father's greatest skills and potential. This ensures the next generation is even stronger, keeping draconians at the top. Ryuka, the current priestess, carries this sacred bloodline. Before entering the academy, she told Ryushin to hide their relationship while he acted as her guardian during her search for a partner. Ryushin asked her if his full dragon transformation would be enough to withstand Haruto's massive fire lance, prompting Ryuka to wonder if any dragon could truly survive a direct hit from that level of magic. She noted that if Haruto used fire or water, there might at least be enough of his body left for her to resurrect him. However, if Haruto used light magic, Ryushin would be vaporized instantly. Ryushin noticed his sister seemed far more interested in Haruto than his own safety, asking if she was seriously considering the boy as a potential partner. Ryuka admitted she was, as Haruto had definitely piqued her interest. Their mother always warned her to avoid humans because of their fragile bodies and fleeting lifespans. But after witnessing Haruto's overwhelming strength, Ryuka realized that race simply didn't matter anymore. Her brother pointed out the massive lifespan gap, since draconians live for centuries while humans are on a much shorter clock. He then asked if she was truly okay with Haruto kicking the bucket long before her, even after her priestess duties were over. She replied that they could surely find a way to bridge that gap, as there are legendary methods to extend a human's life. Her brother realized that if Haruto was powerful enough, this crazy plan might actually become a reality one day. However, there was still one major obstacle standing in her way: Tina, and she didn't yet have the strength to take her down. Out of nowhere, she smacked her brother, knowing he secretly thought Tina was cute. While he was on the ground, she tried to backpedal, claiming she also found herself attractive, which only made things more awkward. She insisted she was quite the catch, so she definitely had a shot at winning him over. Ryushin noted it was obvious Haruto and Tina were already into each other, but she didn't see that as a problem at all. She pointed out that Haruto is human, and apparently human men can have as many wives as they want. With that logic, she could easily become Haruto's second wife alongside Tina. Her brother was stunned by the suggestion, but she simply claimed humans were just wild like that. She argued this would allow her to remain a priestess, though her brother still found the whole situation incredibly bizarre. She confessed she couldn't stop thinking about him, feeling as though her dragon priestess instincts were drawing her toward Haruto. Whenever she remembers his overwhelming magic, her heart races and she gets completely flustered. Even just thinking about his smile makes her heart melt. Rushian pondered this, as such intense emotions were completely unheard of among Draconians. He asked one more time to be sure, confirming that she was truly set on pursuing the boy. He noted that while a priestess's partner should prioritize strength, she wanted someone she actually loved, and Haruto was the one. It was her brother's duty to protect her until she found a mate, but he realized his sister had already made her choice. However, he has no intention of helping her get closer to Haruto, especially since she's convinced she doesn't need any assistance. Either way, they're bound to this academy for 7 years, giving him a front-row seat to see if the shy Ryuka can finally make her move. As the days flew by, Tina's class dominated the competition. Ryuga, having fully recovered, was absolutely crushing his opponents in every match. Draconians are hailed as the strongest of humans, and as a black dragon, he carries an immense amount of pride in his power. While Ryuka initially saw him as a bit of a clown, she recognized that he was constantly grinding and putting in the work behind the scenes. The prowess of the 2 dragon-blooded students caught the student council's attention, leading them to ask their assistant if Tina's class was still dominating. Connie confirmed they were, noting that the Draconian fighter is such a beast that his classmates rarely even get a chance to participate. Ever since the hot springs trip, Haruto has frequently found himself sharing the mansion's massive bath with Tina. However, his peaceful solo soak often takes an unexpected turn, transforming into a full-blown party whenever Yuko decides to crash the session. This time, Tina wasn't having it and used her ice magic to freeze the floor, causing the fox girl to slip before she could even reach the tub. Apparently, when a contractor is completely exposed, those bound to him can absorb the maximum amount of magical energy. Because of this, Mei and Mai also started trying to sneak into the bathroom during these private moments to get their share. Haruto suggested they should just set up a rotation for these mana transfers, but Yuko refused to miss a single day of the action. With Mei and Mai around, her chances of spending the night with Haruto had already plummeted, and she found it unfair that Tina got him every night. Tina mockingly asked if Yuko wanted to challenge her for the top spot, questioning if she really thought she could handle the competition. Haruto finally stepped in, realizing this was the perfect chance to explain why Tina gets special treatment and sleeps in his room without permission. He dropped a bombshell, admitting he's simply into Tina. To his absolute shock, the 3 girls processed his confession instantly, and they accepted his feelings without any drama, leaving Haruto completely stunned by how easily they took the news. The spirits explained they could sense Haruto's heartbeat and true feelings. Since she's precious to their contractor, Tina is now precious to them too. Plus, her cooking is just too good to resist. With tears welling in her eyes, Tina offered Haruto a heartfelt thank you for his kindness. However, the 3 spirits weren't about to waste this opportunity, quickly chasing after the boy to siphon a bit more of his massive mana. All things considered, Haruto's new life in this fantasy world is off to a fantastic start. A few days later, Haruto and Tina were browsing the shopping district of the Efree's Magic Academy to pick up some household essentials. Having a marketplace so close to the classroom is incredibly convenient. With everyone's cooperation, the class is thriving, and the recent exam scores were stellar for everyone except for, in exchange, Haruto has been dominating the class battles. He's been so efficient that Rook and the others haven't even had to lift a finger. While he was busy planning how to impress Tina next, Rayin, the student council president, suddenly came barreling into them. He immediately apologized, claiming he was lost in thought and simply didn't see her. He then pivoted to a bold compliment, telling Tina she was even more breathtaking up close. Right then and there, without a hint of hesitation, he confessed his love for her. These were the exact words Haruto had only just managed to work up the courage to say himself. Rayin apologized for his forwardness before formally introducing himself and his personal secretary. Tina recognized him instantly, and Rayin laid on the charm, calling it an honor to have such a legendary heroine at the school before asking her to teach his class. An irritated Haruto told him to back off, reminding him that Tina is contracted to his class for 7 years, and a swap only happens if a teacher is incapacitated or passes away. That's when Rayin brought up an obscure loophole, the school's official teacher exchange system. Haruto was confused by the term, so Connie explained it's a rare protocol that only the previous year's top-ranking class can invoke, and as luck would have it, the top class belongs to none other than Rayin. By using this formal trade system, he intends to claim Tina as their new instructor. Apparently, he had already taken over his own class's curriculum because he far surpassed his current teacher, making their lessons feel like a complete waste of time. For the rest of his school life, his only wish was for the legendary heroine, Tina Harabel, to teach his class. After confessing his love, it was clear that the guy was just trying to ride her wave of fame. Haruto asked if the exchange teacher could veto the decision, and the secretary revealed he could refuse if he won a duel. However, Rayin warned him that his class hadn't lost a single match during the previous year. Haruto was fully committed, vowing to crush Rayin's class just to keep Tina as their instructor. While strolling through the market, Luna spotted a familiar set of dolls. They were the same ones she used to receive at the orphanage from an anonymous donor every year. As she reminisced, Haruto and Rook eventually managed to catch up with her. They decided to tag along for the rest of the day, ready to sponsor her entire shopping spree. Haruto filled her in on the drama with Tina and Rayin, explaining the brewing class showdown. Luna asked if she could offer support. Haruto replied that with her incredible buffs, he actually felt sorry for whoever had to face them. Since that was her only skill, she couldn't fight on the front lines. But Rook reminded her that their win streak was all thanks to her. Onlookers were stunned to see two high-ranking nobles carrying shopping bags for a girl from an orphanage. The trio just laughed it off, as Luna didn't care one bit about social status or titles. Ever since he was a child, Rook received special treatment, training under his powerhouse of a grandfather. His grandfather focused on teaching him the intricacies of magic, specifically how to combine different elements. Though he was a prodigy from a young age, his grandfather wanted to ensure he never became complacent. He pushed Rook to master more than just the basics, especially since lightning magic was such a rare gift. The young boy was eager, begging to see even more powerful spells and promising to master every element. He dreamed of one day becoming a legendary sage, just like his grandfather. Grandpa was eager to demonstrate something truly legendary to the children. He warned them to keep their eyes glued to him and not look away for even a second. Focus intensifying, he began channeling his mana, radiating an overwhelming magical aura. The seed is lightning, the offering is my soul. By the ancient oath, granted by the heavens, let those who serve his will be heard. Now release this power! The old man bellowed with divine authority. He unleashed his ultimate technique, Supreme Thunder, triggering a cataclysmic explosion. The boy was left in awe, marveling at the sheer magnificence of the magic. Grandpa Pampas explained that with supreme magic, a single master could decimate an entire army. When asked if he was afraid, the boy smiled, knowing his grandpa would only use such power for good. Grandpa nodded, reminding him that this magic was forged solely to protect those they cherish. Now, Rook was unleashing that very legacy to crush Rayin's crew and save Tina's future. Yet, despite taking a devastating blow, his opponent Connie was remarkably still standing firm, refusing to back down. Suddenly, Rook began to question if he actually had what it took to finish this. To the crowd's utter disbelief, he suddenly claimed to feel ill and tried to forfeit. The spectators were left baffled, unable to comprehend why he'd quit at the finish line. Despite the confusion, Rook was declared the victor due to his overwhelming magical display and Luna's support. When asked to continue, he claimed he was too exhausted. As he left the ring, Gerudo noted he was faking, but Rook simply told him to win it for Tina. The referee then summoned Haruto and Rayin to the arena for the highly anticipated showdown. Luna questioned if he could truly fight alone, learning that the evil god's curse renders him completely immune to support magic. He promised to eventually reveal his secrets to his friends, and they vowed to listen whenever he was ready. As he approached the ring, he joked to Tina that dethroning the legendary student council president would be a legendary feat. Tina playfully teased that it would be quite cruel of him, just as the starting bell finally echoed through the hall. Haruto declared he would defeat Rayin as a testament to the love he holds for Tina. Meanwhile, Melody and Lifa were sprinting through the corridors, desperate to catch the start of the match. Distracted by the rush, Lifa accidentally collided with someone in the hallway. When she turned to apologize, she realized she'd bumped into the arrogant Edgar and immediately grew suspicious. She began questioning what he was doing there, but her interrogation was cut short by a sudden realization. She had wandered into the section reserved for Rayin supporters, surrounded by a sea of adoring fangirls. She noticed every girl was clutching a stuffed bunny, which she soon learned was a local tradition. The school had set up a system where fans could gift these specific plushies to their idol, Rayin. While it started with flowers and sweets, the plushie craze took off after Rayin began donating the gifts to local orphanages. Lifa even recalled him appearing on Valentine's Day with an entire cart overflowing with the stuffed animals. A thunderous roar from the crowd drew their attention back to the ring as Haruto made his entrance. Edgar watched closely, sensing that Haruto was preparing to unleash a massive opening gambit. Liafa and Melody quickly maneuvered through the crowd to find a spot among the boys' supporters. Edgar knew better than to doubt him. remembering that Haruto had previously slain a demon all on his own. Rayin stood composed in his corner, framed by the massive audience watching from the school balconies. He informed Haruto that since Connie had fallen to Rook, he would accept the final duel regardless, and was now primed for victory. His entire class roared with excitement, fueling his momentum. But just as the clash was about to begin, Haruto recalled the rumors circulating about Rayin, that, both in title and in raw power, he was the undisputed strongest student in the academy. He also thought back to his encounter with Tina, specifically when she was shielded by the magic stone. Recalling his training in the forest, he realized he hadn't overcharged Undine with mana. Now, he began. He initiated his summoning, catching his opponent completely off guard. He called upon the spirit to aid him in this high-stakes confrontation. Suddenly, a massive barrier erupted, encasing not just the ring but the entire arena. The sight triggered a traumatic memory for Edgar. Within this barrier, Haruto could finally unleash his true strength. Rayin had previously used this exact same barrier to reveal his full power during his fight with Edgar. When our protagonist launched his opening strike, Rayin parried it effortlessly, taunting him to actually try. He even claimed that maintaining the barrier didn't cost him a single drop of mana. He declared the fight would end sooner than expected. Following a heavy blow, thick smoke filled the air, obscuring everyone's vision. However, Haruto emerged from the cloud completely unscathed. Rayin was stunned that his first hit hadn't left a scratch. Meanwhile, our hero, Haruto, mused that for someone telling him to take it seriously, Rayin's attacks were surprisingly weak. However, Rayin summoned the mighty Ifrit to join the fray, and the fire spirit. The spirit apologized to the boy, explaining that whoever summons him holds absolute authority. Rayin then commanded Ifrit to unleash his devastating magic directly at Haruto. Unfazed, Haruto felt the current pressure was still insufficient and decided to gradually escalate his power. Observing the duel, Fray grew irritated, questioning why her master was holding back so much against the student council president. She remembered how he almost lost control around Tina. Yet now his strikes seemed completely restrained. To her, these punches looked so weak they wouldn't even tickle Rayin, even though Rayin's own energy was fading. Rayin noticed Haruto was spamming spells as if they cost nothing, yet he didn't look tired at all. The attacks he did land felt like mere mosquito bites. Rayin finally realized that something was definitely suspicious about this entire encounter. If you're enjoying the recap so far, make sure to smash that like button.